So today's project is more of a video documentary, or a video log as it were. We have this chimney chase that when we bought the house we knew was a major problem. There is no cricket behind it, and as you can see it has had years of weathering. Water leaks down the whole thing. You can see where the water's running down the side, ripping apart the stones. Everything's falling apart on this. The inside of it is rotten. It is rotting the inside wall, which I fixed back in the fall. It's one of the first videos I posted. And what we are doing is we've hired a mason to come and rip it down and build it with all block. The original chase is a 2x4 frame with chipboard installed on the outside of it, and then they did use some wire mesh in places and scratch coat and then stone stuck to it. It looked like it looked good at one point. Does not look very good right here, obviously, with all the stones falling off. But the mason is going to rip that all down and move forward, but we ran into some snags with that. Here's a view of the other side. It looks pretty much the same as the rest of it. But this has a better view of how the stonework runs right up through the roof line. About a week or two after they got the scaffolding set up, they did manage to get the old chase down and started working on the new chase. And here's where they got the block done and started working up. And right away you'll notice some problems with the installation, and there's a few that I'll point out that you won't notice. The biggest and most critical can be seen right off to the right hand side there, where the firebox actually meets the wall. There's actually only just the fire brick itself that separates the flame fire from the actual combustible wood and insulation. I really don't know if the mason had a plan for that, but it does not look like it because he's building right up along it. Another issue that you'll see as the camera pans around here is that there is no insulation behind the concrete that he's putting up the wall, and that's an outside wall, mind you, and there's no insulation behind all those pipes. They had pulled out the original insulation when they tore the chase down that was there, and then left it outside and it got wet, and I mentioned it to them several times that I wanted new insulation back in there, and they said they would do it. And then another issue that is also there is that when he took down the chase, the heat duct that was running through the chase to an upstairs room, don't ask, was removed, and the vent for the water heater fell, and then they concreted it in its fallen position. And as they removed the flooring to put in the concrete base for the fireplace there, they also cut through my water line and my drain line. So it's been quite the trip on this one. Please know that I'm not faulting the mason on any of the work that he's done so far. You can see there where he's got some concrete beside the fire brick between the combustible material, but it's not within code. Any fire that gets close to that has only got like 2.5, 3 inches until it's touching combustible material, which is very below the limits. Most people recommend at least 12 inches of stonework between fire and any combustible area. And with that said, this is where the vlog takes a very sad turn. The mason that was working on this had 30 years experience. He was a really nice guy, but unfortunately he passed away mid-build. We had to wait for the estate to get settled. I ended up buying the tools and the scaffolding from the family, and then we needed to move forward. We were unable to find a contractor to continue working on it, and there are no masons in the area that will work on fireplaces. It was very difficult to find anyone that was any good that could actually work right away because our side of our house is completely wide open. The few masons I did manage to get a hold of and talk to me all pretty much said the same thing, in that this setup won't work for an actual real masonry fireplace because of the spacing on the right hand side there, and suggested that I put the original zero clearance fireplace back in and just go with the original style chase that was there. Since we're now back to regular carpentry work, this is all stuff that I can do. And I continued with what they had, ripped out everything I could, and this is how far they had actually gotten up. They were starting to finish up the firebox. Very little space around all that, as you can see. And I had to rip all this out and get down to the lowest level I could, where they had put a poured foundation underneath the fireplace, as it were. When they did that, they actually cut into our floor joist and removed a huge section of it and left the whole house dangling for a good several days. I expressed my concerns about it. They said it would be fine, but I had 4 or 5 floor joists that were just literally floating in air for quite a while. And we started to notice some cracks in the living room, some sagging in the ceiling, and it was really concerning us. And that was right around the time that the contractor passed away. So we had some issues on our hands that we needed to resolve. And what you're seeing here is just a really quick, super slap-up job of insulation and some framing that I did right after I found out that he'd passed away, just to kind of close it up a little bit, make sure there was no heat coming in. This was the middle of summer, and the air conditioner was on, and we were losing a lot of heat out, or cool air rather, out of the big hole that was in the side there. So I put that up best I could. We added that foil insulation while they were doing it. The original builder had a heat duct running outside with no foil insulation at all around it. Kind of crazy. And the first thing that needs to be dealt with is the falling wall. Now, to fix this, I used some masonry line that was with the mason's tools that I bought. Tied it across the 2 sections so I could see how much sag I had there. You'll also notice that the original builder or someone along the way, I don't know who the heck did it, but they cut the main beam multiple times. There's a cut on the right side, there's a cut on the left side. It's like almost like they just scabbed it in there. And when they ran the heat duct through, they put a really big hole in it. So there's really not a whole lot of strength there, which means that the supporting 2x6s in the wall need to be there and are supporting much of the weight of that section of the house. And as you can see from the string line here, we've got a good 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch that it's dropped. It's kind of hard to picture in the video, but it was a significant amount that I had to move it. And that's just all sagging right there in the center, which was causing our cracks in the inside in the living room, and all of the sagging we were seeing in the ceiling in the living room. And to do this, I'm going to pull off all that temporary insulation that I put up, and picked up a bottle jack, and we're going to raise that up. And as long as you just jack a little bit at a time, sometimes you have to wait a day or two, you can easily shift a house without causing too much more damage. Just take your time, take it slow. So I've got right now just a little 2x4, and they're just kind of supporting that. And the first step I'm going to have to do is just rip out everything that he did. You can see again from this picture, very little space in between the firebox area, fire itself, and the combustible insulation, 2x4s, everything. Very little there. So we're going to rip all this out and then start working our way up. The first step is to make our beam for jacking the house up with, and what I did here is just a couple of 2x4s, metal plate on each end, and that'll give us our support for the top and the bottom. And we're going to set that in place and then start jacking up from there. Skipping ahead, it looks like our line is pretty much level now. I've got the beam is right up through the center of it, and I've been doing some jacking, and we've got it pretty well level. For my beam, I've got it set right there. I put a couple of braces on each side of it to prevent my lifting beam from jumping off to the side and causing potential damage to the wall or myself. And with everything leveled back up, we can now begin rebuilding the actual interior wall and then work on building the chimney chase itself. I didn't actually discover until much later that the water heater vent and the heat run there had fallen and crushed the heat run in the basement, but that's a story for another time. At this point, the only really good thing I had going for me was that the block that was used had holes in it, and I was able to get some anchors, and I'm just going to fill these holes with concrete and use anchors to hold the wall down. I've got my new 2x6 in on the side here, and I got my framing redone. It's all 2x6 framed right down to the concrete platform they did. Insulation, everything's done the way it should be this time. Got nice insulation stuffed everywhere, and I can put my anchors in, drill them, bury them, put concrete in throughout all of those, and mount that down nice and solid. I found another zero clearance fireplace that I could use online. It was a pretty good deal. Came from a couple states away and came pretty quickly. Unfortunately, they threw away the original one that was there before all this happened, so I had to get a brand new one. In this picture you can see that I've put the sheeting back up behind all of the pipes and ductwork and around the fireplace. Everything's closed up the way it should be. All the insulation is held in place, and we can start with the actual chase walls going up. This is the first level, and this is where we will end the video for today, and we'll have another one coming shortly.